Okay, we're back. We've covered from our early faith journey of how we both became Christians, and then we covered that background, and then we went into um, your cancer journey, and you're starting to ask a lot of questions, and then our encounter where you told me that you had become an atheist.
Yeah, the deconstruction.
And then all the deconstruction you went through. So, why don't you pick up there?
So I was working IT consulting, and just doing what, had a job, and at the point, so I wasn't, no faith, no spirituality, no religion, just living life. And I feel like life's slowly started. I guess there's that part of me that has always been seeking and longing for and purpose and meaning. And so as the faith disappears, without even realizing it, I start looking for it in other things. Look for it in my job. And so it's not there. My job, I might look for it in politics. Look for it, and just like looking for where's meaning, looking for where's purpose, especially when God's not there anymore. Start looking,
and where's the hope?
Where's the hope? Right? Where's the hope in this world? And there's all these problems, all of these crises that we're encountering, and so and there's also this side of, well, how can I do my part in helping in any of this? But so in the course of working and getting like more involved in politics and more like philosophies, and just really looking for meaning and purpose and
economics and money, right?
Exactly. Just these big systems of the world that have so much influence. It's like, well, is there meaning and purpose in that, or is there meaning and purpose in solving the problems that we're encountering? So really, that was a big direction of where I was going, but at the same time, I felt like I was just slowly descending, becoming more depressed, drinking more alcohol, smoking more weed, watching more TV, just feeling slowly over time, feeling more and more disconnected, more and more numbing out. Yeah, it was a slow numbing. And I was slowly experiencing. I remember there was one year I had 3 weeks of vacation time. I took all 3 weeks for a backpacking trip, and over the course of that trip, there wasn't like a single moment, but I remember as I was coming back, just kind of having this realization of, oh my god, like almost, and sort of panicking. Oh my goodness, I can't live like this anymore. I can't work this job. I can't work this job into retirement. I don't think I can't work it all into retirement, because I'd been consulting and I'd done projects in all sorts of big corporations.
You were good at it, but is it fair to say you hated it?
More or less.
Your job? Hate's not a strong word,
but I didn't even have I didn't, like, this is just how life is. You have a job, and
you get on the hamster wheel and you go.
Yeah. And so there's even like, it was like a very conscious thing. I remember it was like, I feel like my soul's being sucked away, and I don't even know if I believe in the concept of a soul in the first place. And so, just seeing the political reality beginning to deteriorate, feeling like the economy is a mirage, also feeling like, why is the world worshiping this economy thing? Like I wouldn't have used the word worship. But just like looking out into the world and feeling such a despair of like, where is this all going?
And the good news is you had a good job. It wasn't like you were struggling for money. I mean,
I was doing what I was supposed. I was doing what. Yeah, I was doing what the world said. What the world says.
And you were successful in it.
Yeah, I was good at a lot of aspects of it, and so and so yeah, I actually had at that moment, I was just like, okay, I have to figure something else out. I didn't know, I was like, I have no idea what it's going to be, but something needs to change. And so from that point, later that year, actually, I discovered cryptocurrency, and
we're talking 2015, 16 type.
Yeah, 2016, and I'd been getting really getting into politics, and at that point, like, I was doing activism work for money in politics. I believed that the money in politics was probably the biggest issue that our country was facing, because it was just corrupt. It was corrupting everything, and I was looking for hope. I was looking for something to fix, looking for where can I put my energy that can make an impact in this world that feels like it's going crazy, and then needing something that feels meaningful and purpose and feels like a purpose. And so crypto, I actually ended up discovering it also from a place of losing faith in the economy, like looking for how can I diversify in a way that's outside of this, what feels like a crazy system to me. And but then I had a computer science background, and as I really started learning about it, I was like, oh, this is an important technology. And so I ended up actually I had a lot of savings from just living a simple life and having a good job. And I poured my entire savings into crypto, like Ethereum and some Bitcoin. And
I remember you, just to aside, I remember you calling me and saying, hey, Dad, I found this new technology. It's called cryptocurrencies, and I'm starting to invest in it and put a lot of my savings in it. And he said, I'm really excited about it. He said, yeah, that sounds reasonable. I think he called me another time and said something like, well, it's my IRA or something.
I liquidated everything. Because I actually didn't believe at that point, and then the level of nihilism that I was experiencing was so immense. And there was a part of my soul that was so depressed that I was like, I don't believe I'm ever going to have a retirement. Like, even if I do, I can't even imagine working in this corporate world for that long. And
but for me, you can think of it as a father going, well, that doesn't make sense, son. You need to have your IRA, and you need a portfolio, and you have your high risk, and it's very fair that you put something that's a high risk investment over here, and then you have your bonds and blah blah blah, and
right.
but that's crazy that you're putting so much into it.
I put every ounce of savings, and then literally, I pulled out IRAs and Roth IRA because I had a good job, and I literally just took out every bit of liquidity that I could get my hands. But part of it came from this nihilistic, just this plate. I was at such a rock bottom in so many parts of my life that I just didn't even care. I was like, here's a potential way out of what I'm in. I'm going all in that.
Well, but then when you called, 2 calls I remember. Number one was you called and said, now I've maxed out my credit cards.
Right.
Son,
I wasn't.
You're falling off the reservation here.
I wasn't in a good place in a lot of ways. Like, my mental emotional state, it wasn't. Yeah, a lot of it was coming from just end of rock bottom, inner rock bottom. My life was rock bottom, but I also had this sense of if I keep this up for another 5 years, it could be bad.
The current path you were on,
right? I was
You are doing the American dream.
I could see I'm on a path of becoming an alcoholic, and then I could get into worse I could see that
but society's telling you that you're doing it. You're pulling it off. You're working for a great company. You were doing well. You're making good money.
Getting promoted.
Yeah. So all that. So we told you all along. You do well in high school. You first be a Christian first, then do well, and then plug along, and then go to college. You did great there, and then now go get your job. You had a great job. You should be doing great. You should be happy,
mm-hmm.
right? And not exactly having it. So I remember that Christmas 2016.
Yeah, so Christmas 2016.
2016, you gave me a Christmas present, and you said, Dad, here, you asked for my phone, I believe, and you set up a wallet or something.
Yep.
And you transferred over 1 Ether,
yep.
Which is type of cryptocurrency. And you said, Dad, you like technology. this gift I'm giving you is only worth around $8, but I know you love technology. You need to learn about this. And by the way, I do like technology. It's been my career too, that whole world. And I listen, and I've always amazed at what you knew in the world. As I went, okay, I'm going to start investigating and researching it, and I won't go down that whole path. But I do remember that ether was worth somewhere around $8 at some point in there, and that was your Christmas gift. And you said one day it's going to be worth a lot more.
Yeah, and I was actually like, there was a big part of at that point my hope in the world was that technology. I was,
and the decentralized nature.
I was seeing like, well, I feel like a lot of the problems in the world are because these decisions are being made at these levels that are very susceptible to corruption, very susceptible to or lack of, our world is changing so quickly. How can even those making decisions even pay? But so as technology decentralizes, it's like it's giving potential and giving tools to people to try new things. And I had at that point, like, because I had no God to put my hope in. I felt like that was a technology that I started putting my hope into, as well as being at this rock bottom place. So,
and I remember it was no longer.
I was actually like at that point, because when I gave that to you, I was literally buying as much as like my accounts would let me
get a paycheck, put it into it, right?
Yeah.
Because I remember you saying, like, I do remember too, about you were no longer tied to the global fiat. So you weren't tied to American currency only. Right. You now have this decentralized global currency that had this cool technology behind it, right, that was safer in effect. So anyway, I started learning a lot about it too, and thought it was really cool. But anyway, fast forward a little later, I remember I was in London, and you called me.
This was less than a year after that.
Less than a year after that. So 2017, I was in London. You gave me a call and said, "Hey, Dad, what's the best way to quit my job and retire?" What was going on?
I mean, that was definitely one of the craziest. Like, after I'd poured everything I could into it, it started going up, and it started going up fast. And then it started going up to a point. I remember there were days, like I remember there were these days where crypto was just launching up, and I had these experiences where in one day I made more than my entire annual salary.
Right.
And it's a weird feeling. It was a weird experience, but it was awesome. I was so excited, but there was this point of like, at a certain point, I'm going to quit my job. And it actually ended up going to that point in less than a year. It just kind of, it was one of those crypto waves of it just.
And it's interesting, you had, like, as soon as you were able, the idea of staying on this treadmill you were on and doing the American dream that you were on, I mean, it was a no-brainer decision for you to get out, right?
I didn't know what I was going to do. At that time, I thought, well, like, I was looking into becoming an open source developer or doing something in that world on my own. Right. Like, that was my idea when I quit my job.
Clearly you'd become an expert in that area, so maybe you could start doing something there, but you didn't have to. And you had time to do some other things.
Figure it out.
And it gave you a time to pause in life from the crazy, I call it treadmill you were on. But you were traveling all the time for your work, and it was hard. It was hard work. And then you were able to stop and start like traveling the world.
Well, so after I ended up quitting my job, that's where kind of like where life changed again. And this is where so I would say the beginning of my reconstruction came in the midst of as I was discovering crypto, maybe before a little bit with politics and economics, and then there was this deep sense that I finally got to of this realization of like, I don't actually know anything. Like, I really believe that the first step of my reconstruction, the first step of coming back to God was, I mean, as a young guy, there was like, it's so easy to become arrogant about what you know. But like, learning a lot over those years and really looking for meaning, looking for purpose, and especially with crypto, because it's a complicated world. It really it actually humbled me in the sense of like having this realization that I don't really know very much, and I don't know where things are going. It was just this deep sense of I don't know.
Well, this is a great book that I learned later in my journey called The Cloud of Unknowing. a very important part of, and that's one thing I guess that I started getting frustrated about in the evangelical church I was in, is this idea that we know. There's this certitude of we know. If you don't believe this, you're wrong. We're right. We know. And I know in my own journey, because I'm running my own parallel path, similar kind of thing of, well, I don't know. I don't have a backstage pass to the afterlife. I don't know these things. I kind of believe these things, but I don't know. And the certitude which others, and it's called arrogance, that I saw of knowing.
Yeah.
And so I started going down
that arrogance is everywhere. That arrogance is in the atheist world. That arrogance is in the scientific world. That arrogance is everywhere. It's very human.
Very human.
But like crypto helped me get to this point of realizing like, oh, if I'm going to do anything in this world, I have so much I need to learn. But it was just this sense of, I got to this point where I just felt like I don't actually know. And that I don't know moved through my whole life. And it did move into my spirit too. And to where this sense of that same year that I was invested into crypto, I had this thing of like, I don't actually really know about God also. And I feel like my heart was softened, or in grace, in like, not in my control, not in my choice of timing, but my heart softened of like, well, I don't actually really know about God.
Well,
like,
kind of a
and so
analogous path as you mentioned before, when your rite of passage, you met a point of powerlessness.
Yes.
And that's a similar concept, right? Where you just go, I got nothing.
Right.
And that's when we're willing to accept out whatever.
I was struggling with all these, I was just struggling with like addictions that are numbing. And
they say in like the very first step of 12 steps is to admit you're powerless.
Right.
And what an incredible concept.
So it was like just that I don't know, and is what softened. So literally I quit my job, and it was 10 days after I quit my job. And I actually met with you.
This would have been in 2017?
Yeah. And I actually had met with you like the week after I quit my job. And I don't know if you remember this. We were at a restaurant and it was in Boulder, and I said something like, I feel like I'm like caught up in like a flow of something that I don't really, I feel like I sort of started to lose my mind. I sort of started to be like, there's something happening to me that I just don't understand. I feel like I'm caught up in something that I don't understand. At that point, I thought I was sort of still tying it into crypto. I was like, maybe this thing's really,
maybe that's the thing.
Yeah, maybe something here is really happening. But it felt like beyond anything I'd ever experienced. I was like, I feel like I'm caught up in something. Like, it felt like just a flow of something that is like, I don't understand what's going on. And
well, what's similar on our parallel paths at this point in time?
Yeah.
That's 2017 when you did that and went out and had time. Well, similarly for me, I had co-founded a software company called Sharewell Software. Talked about that in one of my earlier videos, and that journey that started in 2004. Yeah. In 2017, I felt done. Yeah. I was like, it just wasn't fun anymore, and it gave me the opportunity and the wherewithal to also that year quit my job.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
And so in the same year, we quit our jobs, totally, obviously, separate set of circumstances and separate, as far as time in life.
Right.
But it also then gave me a lot of time to start reading some other books and going to some conferences and starting to dig in, have the time to start that word deconstruction and reconstruction of, for me, I don't think I ever felt like there wasn't a God. I just didn't know what it looked like. Right. So I didn't go to the point of atheism. Right. I just went to the point of going, I don't know either, but I am open to learning. And so it's interesting, the parallel time frames of what we're doing.
Right. And it's in that, like, a couple days after even talking with you, just a week after I quit my job, I was given a gift by God, and God gave me an experience of love. Mm-hmm. Like, just, like a pro, like
you didn't ask for it; it just came, right?
It just happened. And I feel like it feels like looking back, it was so planned by God, in the sense of it was after I quit my job. It was after I had the space to receive it and to process it. Like where I didn't have anything I needed to do. And 10 days after I quit my job, I had an experience of unconditional love, just internally, but like feels like it came down from God. It feels like it was
based on anything you believe.
No,
but an experience, a
experience.
Damascus Road or a burning bush or a whatever.
Yeah, just within myself. It was in my room, in my apartment.
Well, I remembered it.
It was instantly transformative in the sense of, and what like, it was an experience of unconditional love that was so vast and so connected that it connected into everything. It was so big. Like I could somehow feel the infinity of it.
Because I remember, we came up to take you to lunch the next day, right?
Or like yeah,
like next
within
day
next
or
week or
next week, whatever it was, sometime afterwards, and you were still in this kind of, it was kind of this glow, but it was also this kind of, you were worried about him because he's just like in another place.
Well,
you didn't seem.
I actually, it felt like it broke my perception of what reality even is. Like I didn't actually know how to navigate reality for a little while after that. I felt so blown open.
Like Paul in the Master, you were blinded for a time.
I was so blown open that I didn't. It's almost just like walking around with my eyes just like so in shock, so just like, but that love, it was. I knew I was like, this is Christ, this is God, and it was a gift. It was just I've never had anything like that since, and so I don't even need it again. Like God gave me exactly what I needed in the moment I needed it.
And look how long you waited, because remember, even as a teenager, you were always about.
I always wanted an experience.
I wanted an experience. I've never had an experience. I just have to believe based on what I've been told.
And that was another point that actually led to the deconstruction. Is I was actually doing everything I could to have an experience. I was learning. I was opening myself. I was trying. I know, like at that point, like speaking in tongues was a thing that was going around. That like my community, like my like Christian community that I was in, and all these like gifts of the Holy. No,
I didn't either.
All these gifts of the Holy Spirit.
That made me wonder if I was a Christian.
Right, but not having that, even though I was so desperate for it, was like one of those things that would add to the later deconstruction. But then in the place where all it took for me was the grace that allowed me to soften my heart of, okay, I don't know God, anything about God. I don't know if God's real. If I did know if God's real, just having this sense of like it's beyond my comprehension. And that experience was love beyond my comprehension. And it was actually so big and so vast and so overwhelming that I even felt like the box that I'd been given in Christianity was like way too small. It was like, oh, that box that I had. Like I didn't realize, that was a box. Like this love is so big. It was like love connecting galaxies and across the universe type of scale.
Well, let's go. I talk about the courage you had in your rite of passage, because your courage can also scare a parent, right? In terms of like, because then you would like take off and go to India or Peru, you just take a backpack and you just go. And I heard you would comment. First of all, you couldn't always communicate, right? You just had a backpack or something like that, and I'd get nervous, like, how is he even okay? Because you were off the grid for the longest time, weeks on end, seemed like. And you'd say at times when I could talk to you, I just got on a bus, it was the wrong bus, and you just get on it and go wherever it took you, like in India, right?
Right.
Or Peru, or
I traveled so much of.
What did you do? What was the travel about?
Well, that experience was so big and so vast, and so like my experience of it was that the religious tradition that I'd been given at that point, because I was coming out of atheism, and there was no more atheism after that. Like
after that experience, you didn't know what it was. You knew his song.
Yeah. But it felt so big to me that that the box that I had was like blown apart, and I felt like I needed to explore other spiritual traditions in order to like make sense of the vastness of it. It was like, well, it was this sense of, well, what I was given didn't fit what I just experienced. And so, and I didn't reject, at that point, I was like, well, this had this sense of, well, all the spirituality, all traditions got to have some piece of this at the minimum. Like there's got to be pieces across the whole world that have, because it was so big. And my experience, which is my own personal, is that just my Christianity couldn't contain it. It couldn't fit with just the background that I'd had in order to process a spirit, like that kind of transformative spiritual experience. But it was Christ. It was love. It's not that it didn't fit my Christianity, but it was just so big that I felt like I needed to explore the things that I had no consideration or no concept of before. So yeah.
Well, it's finding that in multiple religions, the common ground, and
just like love. It's like love has got to be everywhere. So that's also my experience.
I've heard it.
And so whether it's South America or India and and just learning from other traditions and
what they call, I've heard that now called the perennial traditions, or if it's true everywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
So I felt like I needed, like that's where I was. I felt like I needed to go learn from other traditions because I needed a new way to conceptualize this overwhelming experience of God that had, like there was like that had been gifted to me.
So you're starting from an unknowing and trying to construct a more of a knowing, or not the same level, some kind of understanding, some type of belief.
Yes. And so, and then so over the course of that journey though, I started recognizing that, but still like Christianity is my foundation. Christianity is my roots are there, and how I think about God, how I think about all these things are filtered through Christianity, whether I like it or not.
Right. Well, it's our viewpoint.
Yeah.
It's our view from a point.
Yeah.
We all have some of that in terms of how we were wired, and that's okay.
Yes.
Right? It can work within that.
Yes. And I actually feel like I gained so much fruit from exploring these other traditions, but ultimately also it ended up coming down to, and yet, Jesus Christ how do I even say it? Shows me God.